Hello again. Thank you again for joining us as we continue our study of Solomon, a man of wisdom, wealth, and women. As in some previous lessons, we've studied his life. In our most recent lessons, we've started a review of Proverbs, a collection of his parables and his sayings that teach us mostly about wisdom. So we're now concentrating on wisdom, for which Solomon is most famous. In our last lesson, we started our study of Proverbs by looking at the first few chapters. In those chapters, the purpose of Proverbs is to give advice to those who are seeking knowledge, seeking wisdom. And Solomon is sharing all that he's learned over his life. Now, probably Solomon wrote Proverbs when he was younger and when he was earlier in his reign as king. We're going to see as we continue our study of Solomon, we'll look at Ecclesiastes, where we think he was probably an older man and had a different perspective. But as we learned the last time that we studied, or that we were together, he says basically the theme of Proverbs is the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. So he's giving this advice with that understanding, that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. So we're going to take that and go with it today. So we're going to start our lesson today in Proverbs 3, chapter 3. We're also going to look at chapter 6. Now, there are 31 chapters in Proverbs, but as again, we're only going to study selected chapters. So last time we met, we looked at chapter 1 and 2. Today, we'll look at chapter 3 and 6, and we'll follow that with some other later chapters in our next series of lessons. So let's start by looking at chapter 3 of Proverbs, verse 1. My son, do not forget my teaching, but keep my commands in your heart, for they will prolong your life many years and bring you peace and prosperity. Let love and faithfulness never leave you. Bind them around your neck, write them on the tablet of your heart. Then you will win favor and a good name in the sight of God and man. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and shun evil. This will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones. Honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of all your crops. Then your barns will be filled to overflowing, and your vats will brim over with new wine. My son, do not despise the Lord's discipline, and do not resent His rebuke. Because the Lord disciplines those He loves, as a father the son He delights in. Blessed are those who find wisdom, those who gain understanding. For she is more profitable than silver, and yields better returns than gold. She is more precious than rubies. Nothing you desire can compare with her. Long life is in her right hand. In her left hand are riches and honor. Her ways are pleasant ways, and all her paths are peace. She is a tree of life to those who take hold of her. Those who hold her fast will be blessed. By wisdom, the Lord laid the earth's foundations. By understanding, He set the heavens in place. By His knowledge of the watery depths were divided, and the clouds let drop the dew. My son, do not let wisdom and understanding out of your sight. Preserve sound judgment and discretion. They will be life for you, an ornament to grace your neck. Then you will go on your way in your safety, and your foot will not stumble. When you lie down, you will not be afraid. When you lie down, your sleep will be sweet. Have no fear of sudden disaster or the ruin that overtakes the wicked. For the Lord will be at your side and will keep your foot from being snared. Do not withhold good from those to whom it is due, when it is in your power to act. Do not say to your neighbor, "Come back tomorrow and I'll give it to you," when you already have it with you. Do not plot harm against your neighbor, who lives trustfully near you. Do not accuse anyone for no reason, when they have done you no harm. Do not envy the violent or choose any of their ways. For the Lord detests the perverse, but takes the upright into his confidence. The Lord's curse is on the house of the wicked, but he blesses the home of the righteous. He mocks proud mockers, but shows favor to the humble and oppressed. The wise inherit honor, but fools get only shame. All right, so this series of readings, we learn a couple of things. He starts off, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. So again, he starts off here as saying, God is in control. He even talks about the beginning. By wisdom the Lord laid the earth's foundations. By understanding he set the heavens in place. So again, he starts with understanding his place in the world. Solomon is the most powerful king of his time, probably. He's the most famous king in that period. But he understands everything that he has comes from God. He also understands that he doesn't understand a lot of things. And this is crucial. I think this is one of the more important things that we can learn today. And again, we know a lot today. We know a lot about the physical nature of the world. We've learned a lot about how to make things work and ease some of our labor. We've learned a lot about organizations. We've learned a lot about political power and political policy. But again, even in 2020, there are many things that we don't understand. That's not to say we should stop searching for understanding, but the idea here is that we will never know all of the knowledge that's there, but God does. We should trust in the Lord and put our faith in him. And again, we're at a real advantage to Solomon. We have a really big advantage because we understand that Jesus came and taught us many things that weren't as clear to Solomon as they are to us. So we have a definite advantage having Jesus as our guide and his teaching to help us in our life here on earth. So again, he starts again, trust the Lord in all your heart and lean not on your understanding. So that kind of puts us in our place. He also says, have no fear of sudden disaster or the ruin that overtakes the wicked. Now, if you remember, we talk about the love of Christ that gives us peace that passes all understanding. Well, that peace is also in times of crisis. And if you live long enough, and you don't have to live long, there will be crisis in your life. There will be things that will challenge you and challenge everything that you thought you knew beforehand. So what does Solomon tell us? He says, trust in the Lord. Follow the Lord and trust in him. Now that's easy to say. That's kind of like church talk. But how do you follow the Lord? How do you trust in the Lord? Well, one of the things that's important is that you understand who the Lord is and you understand his ways, his laws, and his thoughts. And how do you learn that? Well, as a Christian, I think we learn that through reading of the Bible. I think we learn that through study of the Bible and interaction with other Christians as we discuss the Bible. Now, to say that God is unchanging is true, but the world is changing. And we only have to look at history to know that we've progressed a great deal as a human race. We still have a long way to go. But there are certain things that were common in Solomon's time that are not common today, thank goodness. So again, we talk about Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines. That's probably not going to happen today for even the wealthiest person in the world, and that is a good thing. Because why? Because consider those 700 or those 1,000 women. They were treated as property in that time period. That no longer exists. We've come a long way from that, and that's a good thing. So again, Solomon is telling us certain things here, and he's giving us advice. One of the things that I want to talk about today is over in chapter 6. And in chapter 6, in verse 16, and I realize I'm skipping around quite a bit here, but I think this is important for today in 2020. So he starts out chapter 6 talking about putting up security for somebody you don't know. That's probably not a good thing. He also talks about working and being industrious. And if you're not, then the consequences of laziness will probably come down hard on you. And then in verse 16, he starts with, there are 6 things the Lord hates, 7 that are detestable to him. Haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked schemes, feet that are quick to rush into evil, a false witness who pours out lies, and a person who stirs up conflict in the community. Solomon is telling us that from his knowledge, these are 6 things the Lord hates, but there's an added something that's detestable to him. So the 6 things, if we look at the chronological order, the 6 things are haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked schemes, feet that are quick to rush into evil, a false witness who pours out lies. The 7th thing mentioned here is a person who stirs up conflict in the community. And if we look at this in linear fashion, that would be the 7th. And it's added to things that are detestable to him. All right, let's stop here and think about this for a minute. These are things the Lord hates and that are detestable to him. Why is that important to us? Well, it should give us guidance in this life we live here on earth. First of all, we don't want to be included in these things, all right? The second thing is the people we're around and the people we follow, they shouldn't have this either. And so let's look at the first one, haughty eyes. What does that mean? Haughty eyes. Well, I think it means you think you're better than other people. You think, you're haughty. You look at other people in other situations and think, oh my goodness, look at them, And so that's something we should always be looking out for, and especially in our own lives. Looking down on people, thinking we're better than someone else, because we're not. It doesn't matter what our situation is. We need to be empathetic to others and consider their situation. The second thing that he lists here is a lying tongue. Now, this is pretty straightforward. That's not really hard to understand. So, if you lie, that's not going to be a good thing. The one thing you learn as you get older is if you don't tell the truth, it gets harder and harder to cover up your lies. And you probably heard this from someone, your mother or father or something, when you tell a lie, and then you have to tell another lie to cover up that lie, and then another lie, and eventually that house of cards will fall. And it's not too difficult for it to happen. So the best advice here is to tell the truth and let the consequences fall. If the truth is damning to you, tell the truth and let whatever's going to happen, happen. Because otherwise, you're going to build up a series of lies, and the fall will be much greater. Number 3, hands that shed innocent blood. Most of us, and especially you probably watching this program, do not have hands that have shed innocent blood. In other words, you've never murdered anyone. You've never killed anyone directly. But again, there are things that we can do that indirectly lead to shedding innocent blood. Hopefully you've never been on a jury, on a murder trial, but that is a huge responsibility that those on that jury have. And again, I know that most people and all people on juries take that seriously, and that's a privilege we have here in the United States, to serve on juries. Number 4, a heart that devises wicked schemes. No, it doesn't say a mind that devises wicked schemes. It says a heart. So what does that imply? It's a pattern of behavior. What are wicked schemes? Wicked schemes are those that are to the detriment of others, but probably to the benefit of the individual. So again, there can be a lot of different wicked schemes. Now, the one we're most familiar with these days are financial wicked schemes. And there's, one of the worst things I think that can happen is when you use biblical principles to devise wicked schemes. I think there's going to be a day of reckoning for those that use the church and use the Bible and whatever to swindle people out of their own resources. But it says, a heart that devises wicked schemes. We know that God hates that. Feet that are quick to rush into evil. Again, going towards evil and not towards goodness. God doesn't like that. Now, where do we learn the difference between evil and goodness? Well, again, hopefully we've learned that throughout our life, and we have developed a habit of going towards goodness. The 6th one is a false witness who pours out lies. Now, witnesses, usually we think of this in a trial sense, but there are other ways we provide witness also. So, when you are providing witness, when you are telling something about an event that happened, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to tell the truth as much as you know it to be. Now again, our perspective is limited. So again, when some of you might have witnessed, let's say, accident, a car accident. Well, if you remember, you saw this car accident from a particular perspective. You might have been behind the car, in front of the car, beside the car, whatever. But you only saw one narrow perspective of the accident. Well, tell what you saw. Tell as accurately as possible what you saw. Don't make up things. Don't assume things. Tell what you saw. And that's a fairly simple example, but again, it goes without saying that when we're asked to testify, to tell the truth. And again, if you don't, there will be major consequences to that lie. The last idea here is one that I want to concentrate on a little bit. And it says, a person who stirs up conflict in the community. There are some people, wherever they go, they stir up conflict in the community. God doesn't like that. That's basically detestable to Him. So, that goes without saying for you as an individual, you're not to do that. But more importantly, it goes to say that people who you associate with and who are around are not supposed to do that either. And especially people who you consider following. Do not follow people who stir up conflict in a community. And again, I think that's an issue we have today. It's an issue we've always had. And Solomon knew this well. Now you got to remember, Solomon is king, okay? So his perspective is that people who are stirring up conflict in a community are basically hurting his kingdom. And so his perspective is one that rebellious people are not a good thing. But I do believe this principle or this idea is very relevant. And there is a way to dissent, and there is a way not to dissent. And so again, I think we've learned over time, we know there are certain leaders that we've seen here in the United States that have dissented, but dissented in a peaceful manner, in a respectful manner. And they've been very influential in how their dissent has influenced policy and behavior. So again, what we know here is there are 6 things the Lord hates, 7 that are detestable to him. Again, this relates to us as individuals. It also relates to those we associate with, and especially to those we follow. So, what we need to understand here is that we have to make decisions as individuals about things bigger than ourselves. So, you have chosen certain things in your life that narrow other choices. So, for instance, when you select a spouse, you don't have to worry much about dating anymore, hopefully, because you know, when you go out, you're probably going to go out with your spouse. This is a good thing. That narrows the decisions you have to make. We have to make decisions constantly about things like our careers, the people we're around, the friendships we have, the people we choose to lead us in government, in our work. I'm at the point in my career where I've had several employers, and at each decision I had to make was, do I want to work for this company or this organization? And especially, do I want to work for this person who is my supervisor or administrator? I think that's a very important decision that people have to make. And my advice, especially for young people, is when you choose a job or a career, it's very important that you understand there are 6 things that the Lord hates. So when you're choosing a job and you know the people that you will work with, you need to consider this. Haughty eyes, a lying tongue, a heart that devises wicked schemes, feet that are quick to rush into evil, false witness who pours out lies, a person who stirs up conflict in the community. I've been an administrator for about 17 years. And one thing that I do know in organizations, in companies, in businesses, there are some people who are poison, and you need to do something about it if you're in charge. And again, poison in an organization infiltrates the organization. That can also happen in churches. And so we have to be careful, the people that we select to be leaders and the people in turn we select to follow. This series of verses here that we've learned from Solomon gives us some direction in the choices we need to make in our lives today and tomorrow. Also, as we speak with others, it gives us some advice on how to deal with our friends and our neighbors also. So thank you for this time we've spent together. We'll continue our discussion of Proverbs in our next series of lessons. Thank you very much.